You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
And now, it's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to For the People. We say this every week, right, Gary? The reason the name of the show is called For the People is...
because it's for the people.
For
you. The
everybody.
People, for the humans out there.
For everybody, actually.
For the human beings out there in society.
And, in accordance with our practice, I kind of like to go back and tell you what the reason for the show is. We're really here to help the people understand how the system operates from the inside. What I mean from the inside, meaning from the lawyer's side, which I did for about 50 years, and from the judge's side, which I've been doing since 2008. So what we want to do is we want to help you understand how the system works, number one. Theoretically and intellectually, that's nice to have information. But what we do is we take it to a little higher level by telling you what some of the guidelines are for you to follow when you're in the system, because everybody's in the system sooner or later, one time or more in their lives. Some people are in it all the time. And then what we try to do is we mix it up with some great stories. They're all true cases that either I was involved with as a lawyer, and there were many of those. I tried 99 jury trials, not counting the ones I did as a deputy DA. And we also add to it a little spiritual approach, because the real title of the book, upon which the show is really based, is called From the Trench to the Bench, Navigating the Legal System and Finding Your Spiritual Path Along the Way. So today, every week we try to do something a little bit different, so it's not boring.
It's never boring. In fact, I got a great compliment from a KCAA host that works at the station, Fred Primley, that said that your show is like in the top 5 that he hears. I mean, you've only been on the air like 10 weeks, 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
All right, whatever.
But how many shows does he really hear?
He's heard every one of them. He's heard every one of them. He listens to the station.
Well, that's great. I appreciate that. The object is to get public acceptance of what we're doing here, because the purpose is really a noble one. It's not about the money. It's not about anything. I shouldn't say I don't have an ego. Of course I have an ego. Of
course, you're doing a radio show. You have to have an ego.
but it's really not. But it's really not all about my ego. It's really about wanting to do something meaningful. Because I was making out pretty good during the time I was practicing full time, and I felt at some point it was time to give back to the community. And what could I do? I can't do anything mechanical. If I have to change a bulb, I call the electrician.
Of course.
So,
well, I just did the other day the maintenance guy. So
we have no maintenance guy at the house. So I'm certainly not him. Anyway, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the spiritual side. Not only spirituality, but we're going to talk about practicality and how things really work in your head and my head and everybody else's head.
My head?
I don't know if we want to go with your head.
Yeah. You don't mind if I have a beer during the show, do you?
Well, have another Red Bull. You get you all started up.
Bud Light.
Oh, Bud Light, a small can.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have a guest today.
Oh, cool.
We have a guest today. Hopefully, we're going to be able to make this connection at 4:30.
You never know in this studio.
Yeah. Well, we know we have more fun, I think, before we go on the air.
We do.
You got great stories, Gary. I like hearing your stories more than I like my own, actually.
Oh, come on. Oh, please. Your stories are fantastic. I mean, you really do give a lot of insight to the legal things. I mean, the business side, the what you have to go through as far as like being a client, defendant, a plaintiff. I mean, it's really fantastic stuff that you talk about.
Well, the good news is that over the years that I was practicing full time, I represented plaintiffs and defendants in civil cases on both sides. And in criminal cases, I started out as a prosecutor, and then I ended up being a defense lawyer. So I've been on that side. And I was fortunate enough, a lot of cases ended up in either state or federal courts. So I was in both of those courts. and even through the Court of Appeals. So I've got a little bit of background to share with the public, and not only on one side. Sometimes if you hear from one expert or one person, they'll tell you what their experience is with the one thing that they've done or the two things that they've done. For me, it's a wide diversity. So we're going to have a guest here at 4:30.
Okay.
His name is Dr. Walter Jacobson, and he is a board-certified psychiatrist. And he's going to talk to us, hopefully. He wrote a book, which I read, by the way. That's what got me interested.
Okay.
And his book is called Forgive to Win.
Forgive to Win.
To win, right. And some part of it, according to what I've been told, is that he's going to talk about giving up the ego and getting it really done at the end for a positive result at the close as opposed to at the beginning. And he will have some pretty good insight, I think, because I spoke to him about it. And he said that people are in lawsuits for probably most of the time for the wrong reasons.
What would be the reason?
Well,
unless you feel you're being cheated.
Well, if you look at it realistically, why are people in lawsuits most of the time? Let's take a plaintiff's number on one side and defendants on the other.
Okay.
Let's say you have a contract and the other side breaches the contract, and you don't have a lot of money. You know, you were relying a lot on this contract that you had, and the other side is a Fortune 500 company, and they've got tons of money, and you got to sue them. Well, that's the haves and the have-nots, was what we've been talking about. What's your first response when you realize you have to be in something that's going to drain you financially? Probably will.
Well, upsetting, disturbing.
Fearful. Uncertain.
Right.
Anxious.
Anxious, for
all
sure.
Those things are ego.
Anxiety.
But all those things are ego components, every one of them.
Okay.
Fear is an ego component. In fact, there's a book that just came out that said fear is not an option. That it's an interesting book, as a matter of fact, written by Monica Berg. The fact of the matter is, you should ask yourself, the minute you come to the realization you're going to be in a lawsuit of one kind or another, you got to take a deep breath. That's good, Gary. You gonna do commercials for the Lung Association next?
Maybe.
You can produce one of their shows. Give up smoking.
Well, I've never smoked, so I don't have to worry about that.
Oh, well.
Thank you.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
That is a good thing. Of course, we don't realize I smoked till I was like about 25, 2 packs a day and all that. It was pretty soon it got pretty gnarly,
Yeah, that's dangerous.
I remember the night I gave it up.
Really?
I was in Vegas.
Of all places.
I was in Vegas.
Of all places, Vegas.
And those days, I was living with an airline flight attendant.
Okay.
And she liked to gamble. And we were down there at the tables till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You're smoking one after another.
Of course you are. In fact, I have to admit, when I go to Vegas every now and then, or I used to, not anymore, but I mean, I go to Vegas, but I used to do this because my parents lived there. I'd go out there and get hammered till 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would actually smoke cigarettes. And I never did anywhere else but Vegas. It was weird.
Well, but I remember going up to the room like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it smelled. She'd been smoking, and it smelled pretty awful.
It's nasty.
And I looked at the ashtray, and it was all of these butts that were
Ew,
there.
it's gross.
And I said to myself, "This is awful." My mouth felt like the Polish army had done maneuvers in there. It was terrible taste. And I took the pack of cigarettes. It was a pack of Parliament cigarettes. I'll never forget it. The box was like a more cardboardy box than a paper box.
Yeah.
And I crushed them in my hand, and I picked. I just looked at the box. I threw it in the trash can. I said, "I'm done."
That was it. Cold turkey.
That was it.
Wow, that's pretty heavy.
It was tough the first couple of weeks.
Sure.
Anyway,
sure.
Let's not digress from the purpose of the show.
Well,
here.
it is. That's a good health benefit, though. That's a good.
No, but the point is that we have control over all of this.
Absolutely.
That's the reason I tell the story, because we can do remarkable things if we put our minds to it. We call it consciousness.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you got to get into a lawsuit, or you got sued. It's even worse.
Oh.
Because there's no upside to you generally, unless you're filing a counterclaim of some kind. But generally, there's no upside when you're a defendant.
There's a zero.
So what are you saying to yourself? I don't have the kind of money to go out and hire a really good lawyer. What am I going to do? And if I do get a lawyer, how much is it going to cost me? And am I going to have enough to keep me through the game? In a case that I handled in Arizona, they had enough to get him about a third of the way.
Wow.
I'll tell you what happened the rest of it after the commercial.
Okay, cool. This is For the People, because it's for you, the people, with Judge Herb Dodell. We'll be back with more from the judge right after this.
AM KCAA.
Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil, so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, welcome back. So what happened after they started the case? It was a great case. It's a great case. Still going on now. It's 10 years. And they had enough money for part of it. And then they ran out. The other guys had a load of money, so it didn't matter to them. And as soon as they ran out of money, the lawyers ran out of town. You know,
I mean, they can do that, huh? They can actually just like bail out if they're not getting paid.
Well, there's basically two ways to do it. One is you just you have a contract. Everybody signs a retainer agreement, and it says if you don't pay, they have a right to withdraw. And a lot of clients will resist the withdrawal because they'll be left out there standing in the cold. So they resist it. So there's a procedure in the court called a substitution of attorney. You send them a document, ask them to sign it, substituting somebody else. And if they don't sign that, you go to court and you make a motion to be relieved as counsel. You know, there's no longer any slavery in this country, and so you can't force the lawyers to work. Although there are cases when it gets real close to trial, judge may not let you out.
Yeah, I mean,
there you are.
Yeah, it's weird because it's totally different from civil to criminal. I believe in criminal, you can get a public defender, right?
If you qualify.
If you qualify, yeah.
I mean, if you didn't have to qualify, everybody would get the public defender because it would be free. But here's the problem in terms of financing. These people had a great case. And the minute that they were out, the lawyers bailed out on them. They couldn't get any other lawyers. Now, the rule is you could represent yourself as an individual. Gary Garver has a case, you can represent yourself. It's called pro per or pro persona. You can do it yourself.
Right.
Not a great idea most of the time because technical rules, you don't know them. Unless you're going to sit in a library or sit in front of your computer looking at definitions and things, you're still not going to know the practical part of it. There's a big difference. I think I mentioned it last week or the week before. The real intellects, the people that go to Harvard and Yale and Princeton and places like that, they're great when it comes to intellectual things and analysis and history and all the rest of it. But they're not street lawyers. And in my opinion, and I've always considered myself a street lawyer, you learn from what you do. You learn from your experiences, not what you learn in the book. The book you can always pick up as circumstances arise. But the street guys are going to win most of the time.
Why do you say that? Because of their persona, or? No,
it's the shtick that you use. You know, how do you present things, and how do you get things accomplished? How do you work in the real world with people's psyche? You're dealing with their psyches. And so it's a lot different than trying to look up a .0 law.
Yeah.
There it is what it is. You know, when you're talking about street lawyers, and I don't mean street lawyers that you're hanging out on the, you know, on Whittier Boulevard. I'm talking about street lawyer means you learned how to do it the hard way.
Yeah, you're learning through the streets. It's like, you know, that's how I did my radio career.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I went to Brooklyn Law School in New York. It's a very good law school, but it was not Harvard or Yale or Columbia, where they were really dedicated to a lot of intellectual things. We learned how to practice law. And they taught us, Odie, what do you do if you're out there in the street? And which is the purpose, by the way, of the book, which, of course, is called From the Trench to the Bench.
That's right.
Anyway.
Get it at Amazon.com.
But that book is really dedicated and devoted to putting things in layman's terms like a street person would tell them, as opposed to sitting down and hearing, the analysis of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution. That's not what that's about. And so 97 or 98% of the people in my class passed the New York bar. The rate for Harvard and Yale was 50%.
Wow.
So it wasn't that we were smarter than they were or anything else. The bar examines you on practicalities and how things really work, not necessarily an analysis of 14th century history.
Yeah, that would be weird that Yale and Harvard wouldn't pass as many people as the New York State Bar. That's strange.
Around 50%.
That's strange.
So we were basically trained to be out there practicing with an office and people walking in with lots of different problems. So from an intellectual standpoint, and then we get to the psychological part because I want to talk to Dr. Jacobson about that, is that people react. Their egos respond. The only cases that don't involve money, because most of all these cases, when it comes right down to it, it's all about money. Who's going to pay what to whom, and do you owe anything, and can you grind it out of the other side? Can you beat them, whatever it is? The only one still an ego is restraining orders. That one's total ego. I mean, when you think about it, almost every one of those cases deals with somebody getting their feelings bruised, or they want to get even. Revenge is a major motive in lawsuits. Revenge.
No, totally. I mean,
but you don't get anything from revenge.
Well, I mean, that's what happened with me when I had to go to people's court. You know what I mean? There was no basis for them to sue me, and it was all ego and being hurt and revenge.
Yeah, but you don't get anything from that.
No, you not. Well, you didn't get it. He didn't. He lost.
No, I guess you do. If you get a restraining order against someone,
please.
Now you've accomplished something. You've
what?
Limited those people from doing something.
Yeah, you know what you did.
Maybe you feel good for a minute.
You know what? You did nothing. Tell you the truth, Judge. I mean, all you did was just bring bad energy to yourself, and you talk about karma and vibe, and that's a part of your book, From the Trench to the Bench, about and you always bring up that in the show too. It does nothing for you if it's not based on something.
Look, I've had many people talk to me about how good their cases were, and many of them are really that good. And I always ask the question, okay, who's your jury? And they would say, I don't know. I said, that's exactly the point, isn't it? You don't know who's going to show up that day. Then you're in there and they bring 12 people plus the alternates and sit them in the box. Who are they going to be? I've won cases because I had the right jury, and I've lost cases because I had the wrong jury. It had nothing to do with the quality of the case or the quality of the client, although it does make a difference. Because I was listening to one of the old shows from a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling a story about two great clients. They were fabulous people. They were lovely, lovely people. And the jury loved them. In fact, the jury foreman called me after the trial was over, because I did tell the story.
Yeah, you did.
And we went out to lunch, and she gave me her juror's notebook. And there was some great stuff in there. In fact, I called the judge in the case, Diane Wayne, afterwards, and I said, I got a book from one of the jurors. I said, how about going to lunch? She said, sure. So she and I went out to lunch, and I brought the book, and I showed it to them. We just sat there and chuckled about the things that mattered to the jury, that it made no difference at all in the real world.
Exactly.
But it made a difference to that group at that time. So I don't care how good your case is. It makes no difference how good your case is. The best thing you can do, settle. In order to settle, you got to give up the ego. You do, because you're going to say, but I'm right, and they owe me so many dollars. He said, it doesn't matter whether you're right. The only thing that matters is if you win.
Yeah.
Forget about being right or wrong. Forget about what they're going to walk away with. I'm not going to let them get away with that. They took my money and they took my But you know what? Doesn't make any difference.
But how about if you know you're absolutely like right? I mean, like with the lawsuit, it was a small claims lawsuit.
Baldy the Clown.
10,000. Yeah, Baldy the Clown.
I feel like I know him. You know, after all these times we talked about, I feel like I know Baldy.
But I'm just saying, Baldy.
I can relate to Baldy.
Baldy. Well, I mean, no offense, Judge, but
well, I lost my hair at an earlier age.
But the bottom line is that there was no agreement, there was no written contract, there was no discussion of me paying him to be on my radio show. And so there was no way I was going to settle this. So this is what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you're saying settle, but aren't there instances where you're like completely 100% right? You can't settle with somebody. It would be stupid to settle with somebody.
Well, sometimes they're not settleable because the other side won't settle. You know, it takes two to dance.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And I can tell you, I had a case last week.
Baldy.
I had a case last week. As I was sitting listening to it, you know, both sides are there, and I'm listening to the testimony.
Yeah.
I kept to myself, she's only suing because she wants to get money. There's no case here. There never was a case here. Why did she do it? Because she figured somebody will pay her something at the end of the day to go away. Definitely no merit to the case.
Exactly.
Happens all the time.
Exactly.
It's like I told the story of the lady on the plane who got sick from eating the cheese.
I don't remember that one.
You don't remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one. What happened? I don't remember that.
She came in. She was suing one of the airlines. I think it was United Airlines. And she claimed that she had been on a long flight and had eaten the cheese and had gotten sick. And so we'll leave the part about cutting the cheese for later. But she got sick.
Okay.
And she had asked the flight attendant, you know, this cheese smells bad. And the flight attendant said that all cheese smells bad. You know, so she ate it, came back and filed a lawsuit claiming that she had been poisoned, food poisoned on the flight.
Right.
And I called the doctor in the courtroom. I actually got the doctor's phone number. I got her on the phone, and after the first couple of questions, I heard a click. and then the plaintiff said, I didn't read the defendant's brief. I said, well, okay, you need 15 minutes? Go out. Here's a copy. Go out in the hall and read it. And then come back in and be prepared to do a closing argument. So she comes back and she says, oh, by the way, Dr. Jones, whatever her name was, her battery was going on her phone. That's why she had to get up. But here's her number, and she'll talk to you now. And then, of course, she had everything all lined up.
Right.
But this was nothing more than an attempt to grind out some money from the airline. She figured, I'll sue them. I'll get $5,000, whatever.
They'll settle, right?
And most of them do.
Right.
The statistics, a couple of years ago, I asked a friend of mine, Judge Charles Rubin, if he had the statistics for how many cases settled, what percentages. And he came back with the official records. It was about 97-point-something% of the cases that are filed settle.
Wow, that's a lot.
So well, why do you think that happens? It costs too much money.
Yeah.
Too much risk.
Yeah.
You want to bet the farm, and you lose it. Now you're on an appeal, and they're coming after you to take your car. You don't need this aggravation in your life. You really don't.
Yeah.
So it's not about being right or wrong. And the way that we deal with it these days, the better way to deal with it, and we're going to have somebody here next week, as a matter of fact.
Oh, great.
Who's a mediator. He's a court mediator, and he works in the district attorney's office in Ventura. And he's been in my court for years. And he's a great mediator. He settles a lot of cases.
Let me ask you, Judge, do you think there's people that just like this woman on the plane? Do you think this is the first time she's ever played this cheese got me poisoned on the plane bit? Or do you think this is people do this all the time, right? I mean,
they do it. The one last week, I'll try to remember the facts a little bit better for next week.
Yeah.
But I kept saying to myself, this is all about I'm trying to get money out of these people.
Right. And know it as a judge.
I knew it within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. There's people that just sue just to sue, figuring.
No, they sue for the money.
Well, I mean, I'm saying sue for the money, yeah, but I'm saying sue just, they do these constant lawsuits. Like this woman, maybe she sued 10 plane, companies or whatever, airline companies. Who knows?
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. They come up with different fact scenarios because that's what sells.
Right.
In fact, here I did remember part of the facts of this one. Went in for a massage and then claimed that the masseur had touched her.
Oh.
And she was very upset about that.
Oh, please.
So she sued the company where the masseur worked.
Oh, God.
And she figured they have insurance. They're going to give her $5,000, $10,000, whatever. She was out of work at the time. This was a shot to make a couple of quick bucks.
Oh, we got to talk about that because there's so many jokes I can tell about this one.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
It's your show, Gary.
No, well, it's your show. What are you talking about?
Show.
Oh, please.
It's our show.
I have my own show. All right, we got to take a break. We got to get
I
your
was a guest
on.
on your show once.
You were a couple times. All right, it is for the people. It's Judge Herb Dodell. It's his show, by the way, and we'll be back with it.
And it's available on
iHeart Radio now. Yes, we'll be back.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
Okay, we're back on the table.
The massage table?
On the massage table.
That's crazy.
I'm trying to think of something clever to say here, but
Oh, my God.
But the bottom line was she went after the club, figuring they have insurance. They'll pay her $5,000, $10,000. She's out of work. There's an opportunity to make some real money. Never reported it to the police department, never really reported it to the club, and did whatever she did. It's all about making money. There are people who are doing this every day, filing frivolous claims, frivolous lawsuits, doing whatever it takes to get money.
Yeah.
And the money is to get some instant gratification.
Well, I mean, they're broke, probably, most of these people.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say most. But on the other hand, there are many, many righteous cases where people have a legitimate claim, and they take on the giants who beat them up.
That's cool.
They don't settle.
Yeah.
Make sure not to settle. In fact, we mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
President Trump had a policy of not settling cases.
Right. He still does. I think we got your guest on the phone, by the way.
Oh, that's great. Good afternoon, Dr. Jacobson.
Hey there.
Okay, well, we've been talking a little bit about lawsuits and how people feel about them and how it generates anxiety, and that's your business. Anxiety, fear, uncertainty, hostility, and all of those things, all in the name of ego to get some desired result, some kind of instant gratification. How do you feel about that as a psychiatrist? People come in and tell you they're in the middle of a lawsuit, and what do you tell them?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
What do you tell them when they come in and tell you that they're about to be involved in a lawsuit and they have motivation that's not necessarily based on reality, but based on some kind of mental issues? What do you tell those folks?
Well, are you asking me what would I tell people who want to get involved in litigation for ego reasons, for revenge or for spite or things like that?
Yeah, because I always tell people they should settle cases. I'm really a big believer in settling cases, and I know I read your book, Forgive to Win, and it really resonated with me because it really is true. When you get involved in a lawsuit, if you have negative feelings about the other side that are unrelated to the real facts, it's going to somewhat jade you in the way you do things. And since you're dealing with people's feelings all the time, how do you respond to that when someone comes in and you hear them tell you why they're suing somebody and it really has no merit? What's your approach?
Okay, well, first of all, if I'm honest, I try to be as honest and direct with my patients as possible. So if I think that they are doing something like a lawsuit that has no merit, I actually tell them that. I tell them that I don't feel that it's responsible and appropriate to engage in a litigation process if it's not justified. I also try to encourage people, as you do, to avoid litigation as much as possible and to try to work things out as best you can, try to negotiate, try to compromise outside of the legal system if possible. But I also tell people that, litigation can be a really drawn-out process. It can cost a lot of money. It can be very unpleasant, and it can also keep you stuck in a lot of anger and resentment and bitterness. And so it keeps you in a dark cloud. It could be for years. And so I tell people, is it really worth it? Maybe you should just let it go. I mean, if we're not talking about serious, compensation, or we're talking about just, I want to get even, I want to hurt this person, particularly in divorce cases where they want to hurt each other, I really discourage that. I tell them it's best to move on, let it go, and let all that dark energy get out of your system.
I think you got the right words, dark energy, because it certainly does attract real negativity, because the hatred and the bad feelings that they have for the other side ends up getting translated into the attraction of negative energy. So,
actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that I tell people that if you are going to go to court, if you are going to litigate something, you don't act, okay, do it, but you don't have to do it with animosity. You don't have to do it with aggression. You don't have to do it with anger and hatred. It's just a process. Try to look at it as a process of a judge or a jury trying to find the most just conclusion and the most fair compensation. But you don't have to have all that baggage of hatred and anger and resentment and bitterness and vengeance in your mind and heart. If you need to go to court, but take that whole emotional aspect of it out of the equation.
So when you wrote your book, Forgive to Win, what exactly were you talking about? So the audience here gets a sense of how you view it as a real professional.
The reason why I wrote Forgive to Win is because just most of the people that I see in my practice, just about everybody, the root cause of their unhappiness is oftentimes anger, resentment, judgment, negativity, and self-sabotage. And the whole premise of Forgive to Win is that we sabotage ourselves on an unconscious level because deep down we have unconscious guilt, shame, and self-loathing. And so that basically causes our subconscious mind to sabotage us and to attract negative people, places, and circumstances into our lives. So I realized that a lot of people's depression, anxiety, and unhappiness stems from themselves. And so the best way to end self-sabotage is basically to learn how to forgive and love yourself. And the best way to learn how to forgive and love yourself is to forgive and love others, because what we do to others comes back to us. So if we hate others and are angry at others and attack others, we're really attacking ourselves. When we forgive others and love others, we're forgiving and loving ourselves, and we're sending a message to our subconscious mind that we're worthy, we're good enough, we're deserving of success and not failure, and then we stop sabotaging ourselves and we have happiness and oftentimes a great sense of inner peace.
Sounds like Baldy the Clown, but that's okay. Go ahead, Judge.
He doesn't know who Baldy
I know
the Clown
he doesn't, but I
was.
just had to throw that out there.
But the fact of the matter, I've told this story before, that when you commit a really good sharing act, and this is the spirituality part of our show, when you do something really good for somebody else and you share with somebody else, that action bounces off of a dimension above us like a mirror, and it comes back to us in blessings. And it may not be immediate. It could be in the right place, the right time, sometime later. And you don't recognize that they're really connected, but they are. And the same thing goes in reverse. You do something nasty, you can steal, you can cheat, and whatever, and you feel like you got it, and you've gotten something from it. But at the end of the day, it bounces off the mirror, comes back to you being the wrong place at the wrong time, whether it's sickness or finances or relationships or whatever it is. It comes back to you. You can call it karma, you can call it what you want. But I think your concept in your book, which is a great book, by the way, talking about feelings and giving up the ego and the pressures of revenge and the rest of it, that's hitting the mirror and it's coming back to you in a positive way. And I'm going to tell the story after we're done with this segment about a case where that exactly happened. So forgiving doesn't mean that you got to roll over, kick your paws up, and give up. if you're right and you have a legal basis, you should continue on, but do it with the right attitude. It's getting angry doesn't do you a bit of good. It's like blowing a horn at somebody on the freeway. You know, they don't hear you, they're long gone. The only one that feels it is you. So forgiving is a good thing. It's a very healthy thing, isn't it?
Well, actually, absolutely, and you touched upon another important part of my book, which is being of service to others, and going out of your way as much as possible to actually be kind and generous and gracious, and to help other people whether they ask for it or not, to do it unconditionally and without wanting anything in return. And so, as you were saying about what you put out, you get back. And even if it's not necessarily a physical getting back, like you, let's say you give money to somebody because their car broke down, and maybe someday someone will give you money when you're down. No, that can happen. But also what happens is you feel good. You feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself for being kind and generous and getting out of your ego and helping other people, that is an amazing payoff that actually helps you to navigate your life better. More people can sense that you're a person of honor, integrity, love, graciousness, and kindness, and they want to be around you, and they want to help you, and they want to be part. They want to have what you have, and they want to be part of what you're doing. So every time we put good out there, I believe it does come back on emotional levels and physical levels. You feel better. There's less stress, and on spiritual levels as well.
So where can we get your book? I already have one. Where can you get one?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble online is the best way to go.
Okay, and it's short. It doesn't take hours and hours, huh?
It's a quick read, but I tell you, it's packed with stuff. And if people actually do take the time to practice the forgiveness diet, which is basically routine regimens, behaviors, techniques, so that you constantly keep forgiveness, acceptance, love in your mind, if you actually do it and practice it on a consistent basis, I guarantee you will see benefits in your life.
That's a guarantee, huh?
Absolutely.
Guarantees are good.
I love guarantees.
Okay, well, no, but I love the concept because it really is consistent with my own personal beliefs that doing the right thing.
We need it now. We need it now more than ever. The world is so divisive and polarized. There's so much anger and hatred and name-calling and shaming and blaming and judging. We really do need everybody to make an individual effort to be loving and kind, accepting, and generous in spirit, giving people the benefit of the doubt, and not trying to attack people, trying to see the good in people despite how they're behaving.
I agree with you 100% too.
So where's your practice?
Glory Hills, Glory Hills, California.
So you're in the book under Jacobson, right?
Yes, Walter Jacobson, M.D. You Google it. You'll love it.
Is it entertaining? Is it as good as the show? That's the important thing. We're promoting here, too.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, thank you very much. It's been very informative, and it's practical. Anybody who's going to read that book is going to get something out of it, and it could translate into a happier day than they're having because it gives them a whole different perspective.
Well, it seems like there's so much hatred out there and people being angry at each other and one another that this sounds like a great book for people to read, like, for not just for lawsuits or whatever, but for everyday life.
Well, it also...
absolutely. People are their own worst enemy, and so much ego is involved. Particularly with this whole political environment now, each side wants to eviscerate the other side and name call and blame, and it gets nowhere. It just polarizes us even more. It makes us more divisive, and so it's actually counterproductive. The only way we're going to get to world peace, if that ever is possible, starts with each of us getting inner peace, each of us getting our own house in order.
Well, that's a great, noble purpose, and we're going to try to do that. So I want to thank you.
Let me just say one other thing is I thank you for saying nice things about my book, but I want to return the compliment and say that your book is excellent, and not only does it educate people about the legal process, but it also helps to elevate them on a spiritual level as well, and that's so important.
Well, thank you for that very much. That's a very important thing. Well, anyway, we hope that people start to take your advice. You're not the first person to say this, so... We recommend to people listening to the show. Now we're on
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
Yes, we are.
That maybe some people will pick up the book and help change their lives. So thanks, and maybe we'll talk again.
Great. Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Okay, it's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell. What's the name of his book again, Judge?
Forgive to Win.
Forgive to Win, Dr. Walter Jacobson. We'll be back with the judge right after these important messages.
And we'll finish the massage.
I need one right now. Can I get a happy ending?
Not here.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
Did you ever meet a lawyer that was for the people? Someone who had the best interests of the people at heart? Herb Dodell has been a lawyer for more than 50 years and has been a Superior Court judge for 9 years, having presided over more than 9,000 cases. In this show, he will reveal the secrets of how things really work in the legal system, so you can maximize your position and benefit most when you're in trouble and need someone on your side to simplify the process for you. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, we're talking about the massage. the reality is that a lot of people will do things for the money because they think it's an easy shot. But on the other hand, sometimes there's a resistance and you end up spending more trying to get something and not getting it at all. But to do anything in the system, you probably need a lawyer. Not because you're not smart or anything like that. It's because there's a lot of technicalities. There's a lot of things you really need to learn. So part of it, and we have a chapter in the book on how to pick a lawyer. We've talked about that during a couple of our shows.
Yeah, you have.
But I wanted to go back apropos of what Dr. Jacobson was saying. And I did mention this in one of the shows, but not everybody's listened to every show, so I'll tell the story again, a little redundant.
No, that's all right.
But it's a true story. It was a boyfriend girlfriend, and it was in Inglewood, and she and he were on the lease together, and one day he picked himself up and left, sticking her with the lease. Probably that's about not the only thing he stuck her with. But she got the lease, and she had about another 11 months or something on it, and she was having to pay the whole rent. And there they were. So I said he was clearly liable. I had no problem deciding that case, and I said to him, I'm going to make a tentative decision. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. I'm going to find you liable, and you're going to owe her for the remaining part of the balance of the lease, assuming she stayed there. And she can go after you right away for that. She can garnish your salary. She can grab your car. She can do a lot of things to you. But if you agree that you'll pay her out over the period of time and pay on a timely basis, I'll dismiss the case without prejudice, meaning that the court retains jurisdiction to enforce the terms of the settlement. In other words, if he didn't pay, she comes back in or she files a form, and we can order a judgment to be entered at that moment, because until that happens, the case has been dismissed. And I said to her, you can get even with him right now because he walked out on you, and you probably feel that way, and maybe justifiably. But he's going to have a judgment against him on the name if you don't agree to a settlement. And that judgment's going to affect his credit wherever he's going to go. Someplace he's going to apply for a loan, he's going to be stuck.
Right.
I said, you could take this deal. You're going to get paid.
Yeah.
And you're going to get 10% interest, which is a pretty good rate. That's the statutory rate of interest in California. That's why owning a judgment is not a bad thing. It's more than you're going to get in the bank. You get the bank, you get half of 1%.
Or you get nothing. What are you talking about? 0.01.
Well, you get bupkis, is what you
Exactly.
You don't get much of anything.
Right.
The reality is, if you take this deal, you're going to get paid. If he doesn't pay you, you come back and we'll make sure you do get paid. And that's where you're doing something for him. Whether he earned it or deserved it or not, you're doing something for him. She really wanted to get even with him.
Of course.
And she thought about it. I said to her, is getting even really that important? And she stopped for a second and thought about it because I can visualize her standing there. She was a nice-looking girl, very pleasant, very soft-spoken. She says, okay. I said, well, you know what? You made a very good choice because someday, somewhere, you're going to be in the right place at the right time because you did something for somebody else that was uncomfortable for you. You didn't want to do it. And you had to give up your ego to get there.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this one show today is to talk about giving up your ego. If you can do that, good things are going to happen to you. Cause and effect. It's the law of cause and effect. You be the cause. If that's a positive cause and you attract positive energy, you're going to get positive results. That is the law of the universe.
I agree with you 100% on this.
So picking a lawyer, you got to act also on your gut feeling, but you need to know what that lawyer is going to be willing to do for you. Are they willing to put up the costs? Because costs are what drive people out of the law business. And people can't survive lawsuits because they can't afford to pay for it. And here's a perfect example. I had a case where the client couldn't afford to pay for the court reporter. Court reporter's running about $2,000 a day, maybe a little bit more.
$2,000?
Yeah, it's just expensive.
For a court reporter?
Yeah, court reporter.
Wow.
Just comes in and they take all down.
They take the notes.
They do everything. Well, you have to have the record for an appeal.
Right.
And so he didn't have the money for the court reporter. So the judge said, perhaps improperly, not perhaps, improperly, says, you must not think much of your case because you're not paying for a reporter.
I don't have $2,000, man.
Well, you know, he didn't understand that for many plaintiffs, they can't survive a lawsuit because they can't afford to pay the costs.
Yeah.
It's like that deposition they want to take in St. Louis. And they say, okay, we're going to take the deposition in St. Louis of some witness. He said, well, I don't have $5,000 to send my lawyer to St. Louis to do a depot and to spend for airline tickets and hotel and food and whatever. You can't go. If you don't go, you're going to be prejudiced because you don't know what that witness is going to say. You didn't cross-examine.
Yeah.
Now you go to trial and they stick that transcript in front of the jury because that witness doesn't have to come from St. Louis. They read from the transcript and you didn't ask any questions. So that's one of the reasons the haves will be the have-nots a good percentage of the time. Just that example. And it happens in lots of different ways. It's motions that they make you respond to, that you're paying that lawyer by the hour and that clock is running.
Well, they can bury you. I mean, if
they do bury you.
You go through a big corporation. In fact, I'll tell a small story. I was with the Howard Stern show, and I was trying to create a reality TV show. This was about 10 years ago, called Day in the Life. I was following around an adult star to see how they live, and pitched it to the Howard TV people, the crew, the producer. We went back and forth for 6 months, Judge. 6 months, probably about 50, 60 emails between me and the producer of the Howard TV. They loved the idea. They pitched it to Howard. Howard liked the idea. After about 6 months, I didn't hear anything from him. And I was like, what's going on? And I thought Howard liked the idea. In fact, I sat down with a lawyer. We had a conference call where we decided how much money it was worth, blah, blah, blah. They ended up doing the concept, not giving me a penny. And basically, I left the show after that because I was so upset. It was about a year after I left the show. I talked to some lawyers, in fact, my lawyer, and he says, Gary, they'll just bury you. You'll have to spend so much money trying to fight this. And Howard Stern's got millions of dollars. You don't. You're not going to win anything. It's not worth the fight.
That's classic. That's classic.
That's exactly what happened. It's in my book, by the way, too, Radio Blows. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I left the Howard Stern show is because they completely screwed me over, and I still have the emails. I mean, I've kept the emails and everything from me going back and forth with Doug Goodstein, his name was, and it really hurt me. I mean, it hurt me. I mean, they didn't give me a penny, nothing. They could have thrown me a couple bones, and I would have shut up. But they didn't throw me anything.
Well, I was talking about that case before where they ran out of money. You cannot represent yourself if you're a corporation. You can do it for yourself as an individual.
Yeah.
That's the law. So he couldn't get enough money to raise. He couldn't raise enough money to hire lawyers. So he was without a lawyer. They made a motion to dismiss the case, and the court granted it.
See?
Case over. $6 million case.
There you go.
Case over. Fortunately, he found somebody who was willing to come along, believed in the case. I was willing to put up the costs and front it and advance it to stay in the game.
Well,
literally, I don't mean to call it a game in a pejorative way.
Well, it is.
But it is really a game because the big guys will eat up the little guys just doing exactly that. And then when the company was suspended for not paying its taxes, they made another motion to dismiss, forced them to come up with $20-some-odd thousand to reinstate the corporation. That was really nothing. By that time, it was basically broke. But they made him come up the money because you have to be in good standing in order to pursue a lawsuit. So it means paying all the back taxes, not because they wanted to, because they figured they could use that leverage, which is what they did, use the leverage. So they came up with the money. They borrowed, I think one of the shareholders borrowed on their house. I think they went and got a second mortgage to keep the case going.
Wow.
And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a real risk. So I was going to tell some folks, I don't know if you have the time today, there are
Got
several
5 minutes.
There's different procedures, because our show is about practicality as well as
It's your show, not mine. It's your show. Your show.
Okay.
Stop.
Well, here we go. There's a procedure in California. It's called 998, based on the California Code of Civil Procedure section number. It says if you offer to settle the case, you're the defendant, you offer to settle the case, and you're going to pay somebody, you're offering to pay them $100,000. And they want more than that. And they deny or basically turn down your offer to settle. You have to accept it in writing. There's some technical procedures to follow. If you go to trial and you get $98,000, you didn't beat the offer. You don't beat the offer, you don't get certain costs. You beat the offer, you get 102, you do get all those costs.
That's crazy.
And in Arizona now, the rule is even more dramatic, because if you don't beat the offer, not only do you not get your attorney's fees because you didn't beat the offer, and you don't get your costs because you didn't beat the offer, but you might even have to pay their attorney's fees and whatever they spent. And you know what? It could be more than you won if you go to trial and win.
So unfair.
It's a really difficult thing.
So unfair.
So my advice, not advice, my guideline is take a very good hard look at those offers. They should be looked at very carefully. You can't say to yourself, it's worth so much more, I'm going to stay into the end. You know, that's not good thinking. Another way is called the high-low. This is not a poker game. High-low is the parties agree to a high number and a low number. In other words, the plaintiff agrees to a number that they can get no more. In other words, they say, I agree to $5 million. If you go to trial and you get $10 million, you only get 5.
Wow.
On the other end of this spectrum is the low. So you say, okay, what's the low? Let's say the low is $500,000. You go to trial and lose, you get $500,000.
No, that's not bad.
So you're hedging your bet.
You're hedging your bet. That's not
so
bad.
you're looking at the high and say, look, this is all I'm ever going to get. It may be worth 5 times that, but this is all I'm going to get. On the other hand, I got some warts on this case, you know, and there might be some problems here. Maybe I should get a good. So you're negotiating for a better low, and they're negotiating for a lesser high.
Ah, got it.
And so it becomes a discussion. And as I said before, we're going to have a mediator here next week, presumably. That's why you need a mediator. But the problem with mediation is expensive. Unless you're in a court like where John Howard is, our guest next week, most of the time they're charging you big bucks to be a mediator. They're retired judges mainly, or lawyers who specialize in mediation, and they get a lot of money for a day's worth of work.
Yeah.
So you better be able to afford it.
Well, look forward to hearing from tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, next Monday.
I told them this week, when I was in court, I said, get ready, you're going to be a star.
And Judge Herb Dodell's a star.
Oh, legend in his own mind.
He is. No, you're not a legend in your own mind. Anyways, check out the show on iHeartRadio, too, now.
Well, look forward to seeing you again next week, Gary.
All right, it's Judge Herb Dodell for the people. Check out his book, From the Trench to the Bench. You can buy it on Amazon.com. And if you want to email the judge, go to askjudgeherb@gmail.com. Askjudgeherb@gmail.com. Did I get it all right, Judge?
You got it.
All right, thanks. All right, God bless. And Judge, I'll see you next week.
Yes, you will.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
I'm Tom Busby, CNBC. Rupert Murdoch, the chairman of News Corp, which owns the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and other papers, says Facebook and Google should start paying for stories from trusted sources, similar to what cable companies pay to TV channels. On Wall Street, new record highs today for all the major averages. Stocks soared higher on word that the government shutdown will come to an end, at least for the next 3 weeks. With that, the Dow up 143, the Nasdaq up 71. Drug giant Celgene is buying the cancer drug company Juno Therapeutics for $9 billion in cash. And French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi is buying Veritiv for $11 billion, getting hold of its hemophilia medication.